All right, how's it going? I haven't posted a lot lately simply because January was a terrible month for me. Right after New Year's, I caught a really bad cold and I fought it pretty much throughout all of January, and I'm just still feeling a bit of the effects of this really nasty cold that's been going around with everybody. So that's a little bit why there hasn't been much content on my social media as much and no YouTube uploads. I know I've been teasing a lot for a while about this big announcement coming, and it is coming, and it is involving a band, and it is involving touring, and that's all I'm going to say for now. There's much more I'd like to share, but there's things in the works right now. There's some things we're preparing, and some stuff that we're working on and getting things together. So I can't say too much about it yet, but of that announcement, there was another announcement I had made, and that I am now an endorsed artist with Canonical Guitars. So I've gotten a couple of these guitars. I did release the one video. I did my best in it as I was feeling under the weather, but I did record the one track and I released it on my YouTube already. And it features these guitars, which is their Breed 50 guitar. And I really am getting to like these guitars. Now, a little bit of the story is that they had reached out to me years ago for an endorsement, and I actually had turned them down. But at this time, I was like, now is a good time for me. Things are kind of working out a little bit differently. I was in a different place musically as well. Now I've kind of broadened my horizons a bit, and I'm being a little more versatile. So this type of guitar actually appeals to me a lot more for a few different reasons. So I'll probably have a more in-depth video on these guitars, like a review, once I kind of get to know these guitars a little bit. But yeah, this is the Canonical Breed 50 guitars, and I got two of them. I got a white one and a black one from them. And I do plan on using them when I do go out on tour. So with these, there is going to be some upgrades that I'm going to do these guitars. So there's this one, and then there's this guy as well, the black one. So, of course, the one big change with these guitars for me is that they are not Floyd Rose guitars. And everybody that knows me, I prefer and I love Floyd Rose guitars over everything. And these have more of the non-locking kind of Fender style 2-point trem that I'm kind of getting used to. So the one other big thing that I changed already, and I did it on this one, is that I installed locking tuners on this one. So and it's worked out really well. They were a perfect fit for these Godot tuners, so I've ordered another set for the white one. So I still need a full setup on these. I've kind of worked on my own little bit of a setup on these, as well as with some other mods I was thinking about doing on these, including going to an active Fishman system on this. So I might and I might not. I might just do it to one guitar for now and then compare it against the other one. So I think that would be an interesting YouTube video where I do both guitars, compare one that's heavily modified to one that's stock. That's something I might do still, but keep one of them, the modified one, sort of the main guitar for the band that I'll be playing with. I won't say any more about that. Okay. So the other thing, and I know I get this question a lot, is why do I own so many guitars? And I have a lot, but it's kind of like it's been my collection. I collect. Everybody's got a thing they collect, right? For a long time, I had collected CDs. CDs was a thing for me ever since the 90s, pretty much, and I collected a lot of CDs. My old music area, I had a big CD rack, and I have, I don't know, I think almost 400 CDs over the years. But with digital age, things have changed, and I actually now use digital platform now. I use a streaming service for listening to music nowadays. I don't buy CDs anymore. So, and I have a whole video about that with my wife who guest starred, and we talked about CDs and then digital age. So if you want to go back, it's on my YouTube somewhere to watch that. But I know I get the question about why do I own so many guitars? Well, I like variety. And not only about variety, but there's function to a lot of guitars. Not every guitar is the same. right? And not every guitar manufacturer is the same. They all have different specs. They all have different, I'd almost say quirks. Every guitar seems to have a quirk about it. No two guitars are alike, as everybody knows. There's always differences. Wood, especially being the biggest component of a guitar, is wood. Wood varies a lot, right? I've had some guitars that have been great guitars, and I've been disappointed by a guitar in particular that is supposed to be one of the best guitars in the world, turned out to be an absolute piece of crap. And I struggled with it. And one of the things was the wood on it, the neck warped over time to the point it wouldn't even intonate anymore. I couldn't use it anymore. So I ended up having to get rid of it, and I lost a lot of money on that. But that helped me get other guitars in the process. And not only that, I know I'm going to start to babble a bit, but guitars are all different, right? There's, like I said, there's different specs, especially when it comes to guitars. Like, for an example, like this new Canonican guitar, the profile of the neck is a big thing with a lot of players. Is especially for a long time as a shredder guitar, I liked really flat, wide necks. The Ibanez Wizard, for example, when you're shredding a lot of stuff, that's more of a preferable thing for speed. But when you want to play stuff that are a little bit more, we call more meat, you want a little bit of more of a thicker neck. You want to have something you can kind of grab the string a little bit more for bends, right? It's a feel thing for a lot of players. So that's why it's nice to have different guitars for those different feels, those different styles of music. And of course, there's different sounds. Like, of course, there's always, I use humbuckers and everything, for example. But some of the new technology, which is nice, like this guitar, for example, is coil taps. So you can actually change the sounds of the pickups to go from a humbucker to more of a single coil kind of sound, right? Which I don't usually use a lot, but maybe in the future, expanding into other musical styles, that'll appeal to me more, right? And I'm starting to experiment a little bit with that. So there's always that aspect of things, but it's always, of course, there's active to passive pickups. There's different tones involved with that, especially if you're a metal guy. The active pickup world is much more your style, right? Passives, I don't want to say classic rock, they're just not as aggressive in sound, right? And the harmonic overtones are very different. So that's why having different guitars for that aspect is a good thing, right? For different styles, especially if you play a lot of different styles. When I was younger, for example, I was only playing metal. So I only required a couple of guitars and I was good. And that was usually the thing. And for me, like for many years, it was Ibanez guitars for me. I played a lot of Ibanez for a very long time, throughout the mid to late 90s, all the way up until I'd probably say the late 2000s. And that's when I more switched over to Jackson guitars for a while. Now, the necks are slightly different on them, for example. They're not quite as thin and wide. They have a little bit more meat on them. And especially one of my favorite guitars, my Holy Grail guitar, my Jackson Randy Rhoads USA, has a very thick neck, actually, compared to a lot of other guitars, and I like it for that kind of like the meat of it, especially for rhythm playing. It's a great guitar for rhythms. You've used it on a lot of recordings, but for example, I have a Jackson Kelly USA that is actually a thinner neck than my Randy Rhoads guitars, which is interesting because they're pretty much made on the same assembly line. They're supposed to be the same specs, but there is these small differences in how they're made, especially USA made guitars. So that's why it's nice having the differences of those guitars. Now, the other thing, I won't get into the shapes, but like guitar shapes and whatnot, I kind of, as much as I love flying Vs, they are a pain in the butt to deal with, especially when you want to travel, because the cases are very awkward, right? They're very big to compensate for that shape to fit them into a case. And of course, you can't lay them down. You can't put them down on stuff as much, especially Randy Rhoads Vs because of the odd shape. And it's the same with the Kelly. So that's another reason, like especially having more of something almost traditional. This is a little bit of an offset kind of thing going on. That's why I kind of like it. It's not quite like the soloist or a S-type, whatever you want, Strat style, that kind of guitar. It's a little bit different, which I don't own too many Strat style guitars anymore. I think I have one soloist, but of course I keep everything in cases for the most part, except those guitars that I use a lot, which especially the other thing is tunings, especially metal playing has a lot of different style tunings. Now, for example, like this guitar right now, I have in drop C sharp, whereas the sister guitar, this one, is in half step down. So this is in D sharp standard tuning, right? The only big difference between these two guitars is that the lowest string is tuned down 2 notes on this guitar. So that's sort of a big difference when it comes to tunings, especially metal guitars. Like there's so many different tunings involved. And another example is like this guitar here I've been using for drop C. So there's some stuff I've been learning lately that's in the drop C tuning. So I've been going to this guitar for that, right? And of course you got standard tuning. And then lately for anything I've been working on learning standard tuning, I have my Wolfgang for, and this one I've been keeping in standard tuning. So another reason why I'm having a lot of different guitars. Now, I know somebody can say if you don't have guitars with Floyd Roses, it's easy to tune differently, right? But the problem is when you start changing the tunings, your action changes on your fretboard, and sometimes you get fret buzz, especially if you're going to a lower tuning, and if you're going to a higher tuning, your action goes up, right? So there's all these variables, and it's not so quick to just change and adjust everything, right? Especially where you're comfortable. I've gotten to know like where I like my comfort. I can kind of somewhat set up my guitars to where I like them. So that's sort of a big thing. Where like guitars, to change the tunings, there's a lot involved with them, right? So there's that aspect of why one would own so many guitars. Now, the other thing for me, and this is a personal thing for me, is I like 2 of everything, right? Just like I've got these 2 guitars, I've always been a thing where I prefer having 2 of everything. Why? Because you have a main guitar and you have a backup guitar when you're playing live. A string breaks, an electrical issue happens, which has happened to me before playing live. You have to have a backup that you can pick up and grab right away. I know like some professional musicians that tour professionally, that they use different tunings live. They have boatloads of guitars. I've seen some of these rig rundown guitars where, some of these professionals have 12 to 16 guitars because of so many different tunings. They'll have a main and a backup for each tuning, or sometimes they want a different shape for different, or have different tones. They'll have guitars with active pickups, some with passives, or some are just a different feel. I always get a kick out of when I watch a video rig down where there's one guitar player, they have a guitar, they have only one tuning, and he'll have 12 guitars, and they bring 12 guitars out on the road. I find that fascinating, and there's no difference between the guitars other than their looks. Like they all have the same pickups, the same systems, but they'll just all be the same tuning. That I find interesting. That's where your little, a little ego of having a lot of guitars, comes out. But for me, it's always a function thing of having a lot of different guitars. Now, another thing with the having 2 of, those that know I've been trying to put together a Pantera tribute for a little while. And of course, I had gotten this guitar, right? But of course, this guitar being sort of the main for at home, I've been weary of bringing this out to play live. It's got kind of a bit of value to this guitar, and I wanted a good alternate guitar, backup guitar, something else I can use. And luckily, through a trade recently, I was able to get this guy. And this guy is a Korean-made Dean guitar. Now, I was kind of surprised. I was expecting the neck to have more of a V shape to it than sort of a rounded C, rounded D profile to it. And this is actually more of a D shape. And I was kind of surprised because it actually feels a lot like the Washburn I have. And apparently this guitar, and these are sought after, and I got this for a pretty good deal in a trade. So I'm kind of, really thankful for this one. And this guitar plays really amazing, and it has the same pickups. And this guitar has actually been my main practicing guitar lately. And of course, I keep this in half step down tuning, as well as the other guitar, but maybe even now for a little bit, I will tune this one down. Like I had for a while, I had that one tuned down to C sharp standard for some of the lower Pantera tuning stuff. But I brought it up because now the convenient thing about technology is I have a Digitech drop pedal now. And it works really well for jamming, right? You really can't tell the difference in the digital changes with the tuning. So, and of course, with upcoming touring, and I need different tunings, I'm really hoping that it's going to work well with the drop tune pedal. So that's part of the reason why I have so many guitars. And of course, I'll put some photos here. And like I said, I like 2 of everything, a main and a backup, just for different sounds and different feels. And of course, there's a lot of different styles of music that I'm playing nowadays. I don't just play metal anymore. I've been experimenting a little bit with blues and jazz as well. And of course, just rock, right? Those that have been seeing lately, one of my favorite artists nowadays is Mammoth WVH, Wolfgang Van Halen's group. And he's more of a rock style music with a little bit of a metal influence. And I really enjoy that. So other than, my usual music like Pantera and whatnot, I've experimented a little bit more in music styles lately. So hopefully some of the videos coming up are going to have a lot more variety in the styles of music. And I do have some other videos I got to finish. And now that I'm at the tail end of this sickness and illness I've been dealing with lately, hopefully I can get some more content out on my YouTube, especially, other than playing with the cats. Right now we are entertaining another cat in the house. We got a kitten that we brought home yesterday, trying to introduce him to the other 2. So this might be a 3-cat household soon. So yeah, other than being sick and trying to get some guitar playing done, I've been playing with the cats. So, but that's it for now. Hopefully I'll put up some more content soon. So that's it for this week, or this month, I guess. Have a great one. Shred on. Take care.